bookmaniac, maniac in the library.
Yeah. That doesn't really fit.
At the bookstore.
Oh, at the bookstore. Yeah, that's a good one.
Hey, it's Sue.
And Megan,
The
Spine Breakers. And today we are doing a tag. We haven't done a tag in a while.
Yeah.
Because I think we kind of got tagged out because that was all we were doing for a while.
Yeah. Also, we stopped paying attention to whether we got tagged or not.
Also true. Not wrong.
But we know we got tagged in this one.
We do. So this is the 2 books, 1 stone tag. And we were tagged by a book fiend named Mel.
And the original creator of this tag is Sean the Book Maniac.
So while we do this tag, we are going to be drinking Fat Tire from New Belgium. This is kind of a staple in my fridge. It's kind of a standard drinking beer for me. It's easy drinking, pretty chill.
It's an amber ale, and they're from
Fort Collins, Colorado, and Asheville, North Carolina.
Yeah, so they have 2. They're a pretty big brewery.
And I think
a big craft brewery.
Craft brewery. I've been to one of the breweries in North Carolina. It was either Sierra Nevada. I did, because they've got a location there too.
Yeah.
Because I go to Asheville for work sometimes. So,
cheers!
Cheers!
Yeah. So it's a solid beer.
It's a solid, good staple beer to keep in your fridge if you're a beer drinker. So,
all right. So
let's dive in here. So the first question is, what is your second to last book read?
The second to last book I read was Atlas Alone by Emma Newman. I actually listened to it on audiobook, but it's the 4th book in the Planetfall series, and I was hoping it was the last book, but I don't think that's going to be the case.
Oh.
I'm really pissed about it.
Damn it, Emma Newman.
Yeah. And what can I say about this book without spoiling it? The series is set in the future. It's very much a dystopian kind of extremely capitalist society. And each book kind of follows people trying to survive in this society, but I feel like I can't say anything specific about this book or it would totally spoil the second book in the series. But yeah, I'm kind of begrudgingly reading this series at this point because every single book has been fairly mediocre to me. But then the overarching plot
is fine.
It's
good.
So
it's great.
Fascinating. So you'll have this dull as fuck book, in my opinion. A lot of people love this series, but
I would agree with you.
For me, the books mostly have been super dull throughout most of them, and then something amazing happens at the end, and you're like, God damn it, I have to read the next book now. I just burped while I was saying that. Sorry.
It sounded like a cute hiccup. It didn't sound like that.
But this book, for me, I think has been the weakest in the series so far. And it's the last book published in the series, but there has to be more because it doesn't conclude the story really.
Yeah.
So
that's a bummer.
I'm pissed.
God damn it, Emma Newman! My second to last book read, I think, is Hottest Blood by Jeff Gelb, or edited by Jeff Gelb and Michael Garrett. It's a collection of horror erotica short stories. I had already read Hotter Blood because it's a trilogy. And so I picked up Hottest Blood, and honestly, I was really disappointed. Hotter Blood was fun and ridiculous and super fun on the horror and the erotica factors. Hottest Blood was real weak on the horror factor, real weak on the erotica factor, and real strong on the problematic factor. So was very disappointed, did not love it. I think I gave it 2 out of 5 stars because there were a couple of decent stories in there. But yeah, Hotter Blood was better than Hottest Blood.
The second question is, what is the second book from the top of your TBR?
And I have 2 here because I'm not really sure what order I'm going to tackle these in. I don't really do TBRs. I'm very much a mood reader, so these are just 2 books that are at the top of my TBR. And the first one is A Taste of Power by Elaine Brown, because one of our friends, whose name is also Megan, has a really cool Twitch channel It's Black
and YouTube
and YouTube channel. Yeah, it's Blackbird 1619 is the name of it.
Mm-hmm.
And they talk about her and like kind of a panel of people talk about race. They talk about like sociocultural issues surrounding race, and they are doing like a group read for it, and that is the group read. So I highly recommend that you check it out.
Yeah, we'll link the Twitch, and there's also a Facebook page where she'll post kind of like what's coming up,
what's going on
next.
Yeah.
So we'll link all that below. But.
Yeah, we'll link that below, but we highly recommend that you check it out. So like I said, super interesting, like very good discussions. There was one I just tuned into. It was about the whole like good hair thing, and it was super interesting. It was a great discussion. So check it out. Megan is awesome. We love her. The second book is Slammerkin by Emma Donoghue, which I'm reading for If You Gotta Read It, because it was a book. It's a book you bought on a friend's recommendation, but I'm pretty sure Sue gave it to me. So,
yeah, I did.
But she really liked it, and that's why I want to read it. So,
yeah. And I kind of have like, again, I don't have like a solid TBR either, but I had kind of two books in my head that I wanted to try to read next. And one is for the If You Gotta Read It challenge, which I probably will try to read first. And the second one I had in my head was So You Want to Talk About Race by Ijeoma Oluo. And I got this in my Ally box last month. I did an unboxing of that. You might have seen it. But yeah, Megan read it, last month or the month before?
I think in June.
Yeah, and she really liked it. And so I would like to get to that soon. So I'm going to try to read that one this month.
So the third question is two-star reads.
So I picked a couple that I feel like I don't talk about that much. I also read both of these like quite a while ago. But first I have Journey to the Center of the Earth by Jules Verne. I know it's a classic. A lot of people love it. It's like classic science fiction. But this book pissed me off. Because first of all, most of it's boring as hell. And then when it finally gets to something interesting, when they're in the center of the earth and they find this like lush ecosystem of like plant and animal life, they even see humans that don't look, they're like giant humans, which was kind of weird to have happened underground. You'd think they'd be smaller. But anyway.
Whoa. Mind blown.
But so they find all this shit, and being scientists, you think they'd be like, we must study this.
Right.
No.
Oh.
They're like, we gotta get the fuck out of here. And so they basically destroy this ecosystem in order to propel themselves out from underground. And they fuck this whole ecosystem up. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, what kind of scientist?
What kind of scientist are you?
Yeah. And like most of the book is just them in these these like underground tunnels, like, where the fuck are we? Who cares? And then they finally find something interesting and they're like, yeah, we gotta go.
Peace out.
So that book pissed me off and I gave it 2 stars. And then the other book is Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. I read this one like a really long time ago. To me, I just felt like it was Pride and Prejudice and there was like nothing, I didn't feel like the zombies added anything interesting to it.
Really? Just like random zombies thrown in, like interspersed.
Not random really, but it was just, I don't know. It didn't do anything for me. I was just kind of like, it's just like I'm rereading Pride and Prejudice.
I feel like that would be the only way I would like Pride and Prejudice.
Maybe.
Is if they threw some zombies in there. Make it interesting.
Yeah, so I was just like, meh about it.
I probably should have asked you this before you talked about your books, but like, so explain a little bit about like, what does a 2-star rating mean to you? Because I know everyone does book rating just a little bit differently.
Yeah.
So like,
for me, a 2-star rating means I didn't like it.
Same for me, because 1 star means I hated it.
1 star is like, I fucking despise this book.
I really hated
2
it. 2
stars, like, it wasn't horrible. It wasn't the worst book I've ever read, but I didn't like it.
But I didn't like it. Yeah, same for me. Yeah, I did not like it. So, for me, both of these books are books I've read fairly recently, but because I didn't like them, I don't talk about them a whole lot because I didn't like them. The first one is 3 Women by Lisa Taddeo. And this book was a non-fictional tale of 3 women's stories about their sex lives. The thing I did like about it was that it didn't read like a nonfiction. It was, you know, the way that she wrote it was very, I guess compelling would be a good way to put that.
Is that Sasha?
No, that door just takes forever to close and it finally just sealed because it's old. But yeah, so it was very compelling. But it was about 3 cis white women. And I feel like it was all about the ways in which their sexuality was manipulated by and dominated by men. I don't feel like it was a really good story about, and maybe it wasn't meant to be and I just missed the point, but like, or missed maybe my idea of what the book was about was different than what it was actually supposed to be about. But it was not like an empowering tale of these women enjoying their sexuality and like taking control of their sexuality. It was very much like, here's how men use and manipulate my sexuality. It was really depressing. And like I said, it was very much from a cis white perspective. So like, it's 3 women, but you're not getting any diversity really in there. Age and maybe affluence are like the only 2 diverse, you know, things that vary between the women, but they're definitely all white. So anywho, I didn't like it. I was not impressed. I think it was the first book I read this year, and so I was like, but now I look back and I'm like, well, that's fitting for 2020. Yeah. You know, but like, at the time I was like, what a fucking disappointment. No, that's just this year. That's how it is. So the next book is 1 Second After by William Forshin.
William Foreskin.
Yeah, I always just write Dick Foreskin because that's how I remember his name. I think I read this book last year or the year before. I think it was last year. And I read it because it was like a post-apocalyptic book. What I didn't realize was it was a very much like right-wing, what is that called? Where they like emit the signal and like all of our technology dies. It's a thing, and it's like a right-wing conspiracy theory thing.
Oh man, Terminus, I can't think of it.
I know, it's I cannot even think of it.
Electro something or
something.
Radio? Isn't it a radio?
Fuck me, I don't remember. I'm gonna look it up now. But yeah, it's very much like a right-wing conspiracy thing. I didn't know that. I just read like post-apocalyptic world and I was like, well, that's my thing. So it was very much like white conservative America is awesome. Like it was a very big cheerleader for white conservative America. And if you've, electromagnetic pulse attack. Yeah, that's what it is. And so it takes place in Black Mountain, North Carolina. But yeah, it's very much like conservative white America is the best thing in the world. And I don't believe in any of that. So it was kind of shitty. I will say that it did kind of point out some, in a post-apocalyptic situation, like disregarding everything else about the book, and we're just thinking about post-apocalyptic situations. It did talk about like folks who need like certain medications and like the struggles that they would go through. Like one of the characters is diabetic, and obviously insulin has to be refrigerated and you have to be able to get it like with a regularity. And they weren't able to do that, so they pointed that out. But it was still just a really garbage book. Nope.
So the next question is 2 great books by the same author.
So,
and I said it like that on purpose.
Author. So for this one, the author that I chose was Alice Walker. And the 2 books that I chose were The Color Purple and The Temple of My Familiar. I read The Color Purple last year or the year before, and I gave it 5 stars. I loved it. Like, I was blown away. And then The Temple of My Familiar, I feel like it in my mind, it almost rivals The Color Purple. Like, it was so good. And there was this amazing character in that book who, the whole premise is, like, this character had lived 1,000 lives, and they remembered them all. Like, they remembered, well, almost all of them. And it was just such a crazy, like, cool concept, and the way it was, like, Alice Walker is a brilliant writer, and like the way that she executed the concept was perfect in my opinion. But no, I love that book. It was a beautiful book. I cried a little bit. Like it, and I'm not a book crier, but I think I cried in The Color Purple too. Just brilliant books, both 5 stars.
So we both tried not to choose Octavia Butler.
We did. We did.
For this tag, too much for this tag anyway, because
we're gonna mention her.
Talk about her all
We're
the time.
gonna mention her.
So I chose Toni Morrison for this one, and the 2 books by her that I have loved the most so far. I've only read 3 of her books so far, but I definitely plan on reading everything she's ever written because she's brilliant. But Beloved and Sula have been my favorite that I've read by her so far. Beloved's my #1 favorite. It's so fucking good.
Oh my god.
Amazing.
Emotionally just wreck you.
Yeah.
Like so good though.
But I loved Sula as well. It has a lot to do with like female friendship, and I thought it was really good. I've also read The Bluest Eye, which was also really good, but I liked Sula a little bit more than I liked it. But yeah, her writing is so beautiful.
God, it is.
It's like almost, it's like poetic, you know?
Yeah, but like what I really admire about her is that she's able to do that, and she's able to tell like a really poignant story that like fucking wrecks you so succinctly.
Yeah.
Because I feel like for me, I prefer that. Like I prefer someone who can pack a big punch succinctly. And I think so many authors just they feel like they have to pack all this shit in and like
and the flowery language, and I don't mind flowery language when it's appropriate, but like Toni Morrison, I feel like every sentence is meaningful.
God. So much packed into one.
Books.
Yeah.
Yep. You know, so she doesn't waste any words in there. But just if you haven't read Toni Morrison, I highly recommend.
Why haven't you? Like if you haven't read her, why not?
Yeah.
Right. So the next question is, 2 bails, 2 books you hated, or 2 books you wish you would have bailed on.
Okay, so I have 1 book I did bail on, and 1 book I wish I'd bailed on. And the first one is Emotionally Weird by Kate Atkinson. This one I picked up at like a library sale or something, and I do feel like the cover of it is very misleading, at least with the edition that I had, which is like kind of a little cartoonish thing and kind of makes it look cutesy, plus the title, Emotionally Weird, makes it sound like it's going to be kind of cutesy. And I knew Kate Atkinson was like kind of more literary, but I started it, I got not that far in it, and I was just like, this is a bunch of bullshit. Like it was just like pretentious bullshit. And I kind of looked at the reviews on Goodreads before deciding to DNF it, and a lot of them, it had very mixed reviews. Okay. And the bad reviews said that it was just like very indulgent, and if you weren't like a literature major, you know, like if you weren't like someone who was super into whatever, because it was about some college students who were, I think, literature, I don't remember, but it was just like,
kind of screams pretension.
Yeah, it was, I thought it was kind of pretentious and just boring and blah. I was just like, And I have the book Life, I think it's called Life After Life.
Life After Life, I have that one too.
I have that by her, and it has, I think, better reviews, so I'll still give her another go. But that book was just not worth the effort I think I would have had to put into reading it.
Fair.
And then the other book I have is one that I did finish, and it's The Heart Does Not Grow Back by Fred Venturini, I think was his last name. But this one...
I love listening to you talk about this book. I could do this all day. I'm gonna just, here, let me kick back.
Yeah, this one was it was kind of a cover buy. The cover looks really cool. I'll have to put a picture up of it. But the premise sounded cool too. It's about like a guy who discovers that he can regrow his organs and limbs and like any part of his body except his heart, I guess.
Weird thing.
And so he uses that power to try to get a girl to like him. I was just like, are you fucking kidding me, dude? And like he does do this like weird reality show where he gives people organs, so he does help people, but he only does it to try to get her attention. And I was just like, I hate this guy.
I hate him.
I hate him.
No, he sucks.
It sounds like you have a cool power where you could actually like
do some good in this world.
Yeah.
And you're gonna like fuck around and try to get laid. Like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, and like the girl's not interested. Like, give up. She said no multiple times. And it's like he's trying to save her because she's in like an abusive relationship or something. But it's like,
I just had like a really fucked up, weird, random thought.
What?
Sorry, and it was like a hottest blood or hotter blood type of thought. What if
you could grow two dicks?
regenerative dick pictures, like, and he just like sends her pictures of him like regenerating his dick. Like, baby, can you see how big you can make it grow? Like,
oh my god. Ew, you've been reading too much.
I've been reading too much horror erotica.
Put down.
I gotta put it down.
Gotta put down the horror erotica for a while.
I gotta put it down. Sorry, I took it a way different direction.
Yeah, but I was just like totally disgusted with this dude. I was like,
ew.
Get over yourself, bro. She doesn't like you.
Yeah, but I'm different.
Yeah, I can grow back my limbs.
But no, my heart, so don't break it, girl.
Regenerate like a starfish. I was trying to think.
I don't know why, but for some reason Gumby popped in
my head went jellyfish, and I was like, that's not right.
No. My brain went Gumby, and I'm like, Gumby doesn't regenerate, I don't think. What?
Maybe, I don't know what species Gumby is.
It's clay, I don't know why, I don't know.
I guess you could.
It's been a long day.
Anyway. Yeah, so that book sucked. I have heard, because this book has a lot of, like, really good reviews.
From
but
men?
I have, no, even from women, like, even, I saw, like, booktubers who I wouldn't expect to give this a good review, gave it, like, 5 stars.
What?
But I have heard that this book was originally published with, I think, a different title. I can't remember what the original title was. And that some changes were made before it was, like, I think maybe it was, like, self-published to begin or something like that. I'm not sure. And then I think some changes were made, and then it was republished as The Heart Does Not Grow Back. And I did see people say that the changes made it worse.
Okay.
But I'm like, I don't see, like, unless they changed it profoundly, I don't see how I could ever have liked this book, but I don't know.
I mean, the whole premise seems fucked up. Incoming Murphy. Come on.
Incoming Murphy.
He's been whining down there for a while. So I picked 2 books, both that I did not finish. I DNF'd both of these, which I am a rare DNFer because I don't like to waste a time investment. So the first book is Ready Player One. I don't remember who that was by because I don't care.
Ernest Cline, I want to say.
Ugh, whatever. It was just such a, like, to me it represented every dude who's ever gatekept anything from me. Like, it
and
just,
every dude who thinks girls don't like him, but he's a nice guy. Girls only like dicks when really you're
he's
like,
a dick.
You're the dick, bro.
Yeah, like it represented every nice guy who wasn't, and every dude who's ever gatekept me from anything. And like every dude who felt like the things that he liked were superior just because he liked them.
Yeah.
You know? That's what that book represented to me, and it was such a like nerdy dude bro power fantasy. Like I gave 0 fucks. I gave no fucks. And I
finished that book and I also hated it.
It was awful. It was terrible. So yeah, I really hated it. And like I heard there was like a sequel coming out.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't care. Like, if it's anything like the first one, like I don't care. The second book that I DNF'd was Nocturnes by John Connolly, which is a collection of horror short stories. And I literally DNF'd it after the first story because it was so problematic that I didn't even care to read the rest of it. I've said this before in like previous videos. The first story was like the perfect example of everything that men do wrong when they write horror. Like the descriptions of women were all based on obviously like their physical appearance, but I do feel like there were some like racially descriptive things too. I'm trying to remember correctly. It's been
all women say they looked exotic.
Ugh. Anyway,
I love when Murphy turns around and just gazes at me.
Isn't it sweet when he does that? Because he's like, "Can you tell me that you love me?" Is how I always take that. He's like, "Do you love them, Murphy?"
I think it's more like when I stop scratching him, and he's like, Did I tell you to stop, bitch?
He's like, bitch, listen. No, he's not going to do it. He's like,
Anyway, sorry.
Anyhoozle. So yeah, Nocturnes, John Connolly. Made me never want to read any John Connolly ever because it wasn't a good enough story to propel me to read the rest of the collection.
Yeah.
Hoping that maybe he found some enlightenment along the way and like the rest of the stories were less problematic.
I read one book by him, The Book of Lost Things, which is another book that has like very good reviews for the most part. And it had the most intense fat shaming I think I've ever read.
Yeah,
in a book.
I feel like there was some of that in the first story in Nocturnes, which was what was it, like the Cancer Man or something? I don't remember, but it was really problematic. Like, it was not worth reading.
This is why we probably stopped doing tags, is because
we just get distracted. We got
on every question
that we talk about.
Fucking tag in the world.
But yeah, so anyway, I have this book. It's in my get rid of pile, but I have marked so many passages in that first story because they're all god awful. So, anyways, so to take it a different direction, what are two of your favorites this year so far?
So one of my favorites this year has been The Deep by Rivers Solomon with David Diggs, William Hudson, and Jonathan Snipes. This is about a community of mer people who are descendant of the children of pregnant African women who were thrown overboard on slave ships. And it follows one character specifically who's like sort of the memory keeper. So she keeps all these memories of their ancestry and where they came from, which is very traumatic, of course, and she's kind of struggling with that. I thought it was like a really beautiful story. The reason why there's like co-authors with it is that it's based on a song by the hip hop group Clipping that had David Diggs, where are the other guys? William Hudson and Jonathan Snipes were all in that group. So I'll link that song below. It's a pretty cool song.
Yeah, it's like sci-fi music.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Yeah, it's a cool concept. It's a beautiful story. Loved it. And then the other one I wanted to talk about is Midnight Robber by Nalo Hopkinson. This is set on it starts out at least set on a Caribbean colonized planet. And it follows a girl named Tantan, and she and her father end up exiled from this planet. And so they're sent to this other world where like things of myth and legend are real. And so she has to survive in this world. She kind of becomes the legend herself. Ooh. And I really loved it. I thought it was so interesting to read about these kind of mythological things. I really liked Tantan's trajectory through it. It was just really cool. I don't know. I loved it. And definitely I'm going to read some more Nalo Hopkinson. I just picked up Brown Girl in the Ring. So
you made me want to
that
read
soon.
Midnight Robber.
It's really good.
So the two I would like to talk about, the first one is Ghost Summer by Tananarive Due. So I heard about Tananarive Due because I was listening to the Nightlight podcast, which is horror short stories by Black authors. And they mentioned Tananarive Due in an interview, I think, with an author. And I was like, well, that sounds good. I'll check that out. And so I read Ghost Summer, which is a collection of short stories, and there's a little bit of everything in there. Like, it's so good, and I think Tananarive Due, is maybe from Florida. A lot of her stories are set in Florida. There's some ghost stories in there. There's some zombie stories in there. There's just like a little bit of mix of horror, and it's a really great collection. Like, all of the stories were just very good, compelling, and there's some like magic stuff in there. I don't know, there's a lot in there. And so that compelled me to read more of Tananarive Due, and I think that's probably why, like, Ghost Summer on its own is really good, and it's definitely one of my favorites of the year. But it's also one of my favorites of the year because it made me read more of her work. And her work is really good. Like, I was reading the African Immortals series that she did, and holy shit, I'm hooked. So good. So yeah, Ghost Summer is my favorite for two reasons. Number one, because it's a really excellent collection of horror short stories. And number two, because it kind of turned me on to a new, to me, really amazing author.
Yeah.
So, Tanina Reeve, incredible.
I just bought one of her books.
Oh my god, I'm so excited for you to read it because it's so good. The second book I'm going to talk about is Who Fears Death by Nnedi Okorafor. This book was one of those books, I think after I read it, I rated it 4 stars. And then like the more I thought about it, because I kept thinking about it when I was done with it. Like and even now, like my brain keeps returning to it. And I still kind of have like a book hangover from it. Because I thought it was so good. It's a story about a woman who is discovering that she's a sorceress. And the events that brought her to life were traumatic. She's the product of rape. So there's a tribal war going on between her mother and her father's tribe. Her father raped her mother and created her. And people who are created in that way, children who are products of rape between the 2 tribes are considered to be violent beings. And they're kind of outcasts. And so she is trying to live with that and then also live with the fact that she's a very powerful sorceress. And it was just a really good book. There was a lot of really cool African mythology in there. I don't even know what to say about it. It was really good.
Yeah.
So
really
I went back and rated it 5 stars because I loved it.
Yeah, it probably is my favorite Nnedi Okorafor that I've read.
So good. So good.
Yeah.
And it led me to read another really good book by Nnedi Okorafor. So, I mean, I feel like those are the things about good books. Like for me, if I read like a really stellar book by an author, I want to read more. And so, yeah, both of those books.
I kind of don't do that like you do though.
I get like real into it.
I don't know
just
why.
like dive in
Megan
there.
will like read a book she loves by an author and then read everything they've ever written like immediately.
Yeah, we'll do that.
And I do not do that.
I'm like that with series too. Like if I read a series and I'm like, oh, this is really good, I'm like dive right in.
Yeah.
And I feel like part of that is like ADHD brain because we get like hyper focused on things that we like, or that like hold our attention. And then I feel like part of that is just like I get obsessive about stuff, and that's just how I am.
Yeah. And I feel like with series especially, I'm just afraid that the next one's going to ruin it.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's kind of the same reason I do that with authors, is I'm
Fair.
like, what if the next book I read by them
bad?
sucks?
And see, to me, I'm just like, if I grow to give a shit about the characters, like, I gotta know more. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of the same with the author. Like, if I grow to like, oh, this author is like really cool, like, well, I gotta know more.
Yeah. The next one is 2 new fave booktubers.
For this one, we recently posted a video of our favorite or some like really cool Black booktubers that we enjoy watching.
Yeah, and some of them were new to us and some of them weren't.
Right.
But we're going to link that below.
And we would recommend that you watch that and check out those booktubers.
But we're going to be real honest, we haven't really watched a lot of new booktubers otherwise.
Other than that, like we really haven't.
Yeah.
So if you have any new booktubers that you'd like to recommend to us, or new booktubers that like you really dig that you want to recommend to us, please do.
Or if you're someone who has a channel yourself,
let us know.
Let us know, and we'll
check
it out.
So a book you've read twice.
I've read The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien at least twice, and it's great. I love it.
I love that book. I've read The Parable of the Talents and The Parable of the Sower twice because I reread them this year. I typically don't reread books. There's been a handful of books I have reread, but I really felt like those 2 books would be particularly relevant right now. So I chose to reread them at this point in history, which was maybe not a great decision, but maybe it was.
So the next one is to give us 2 fabulous quotes from books you've read recently.
The first quote that I would like to read is from The Temple of My Familiar by Alice Walker. Keep in mind always the present you are constructing. It should be the future you want.
Wise words.
Wise words. And then the second quote, I will read this quote and I will requote this until I die. Is from Octavia Butler, and it is so particularly relevant right now, and I really want everybody who votes to think about this quote when they vote. Choose your leaders with wisdom and forethought. To be led by a coward is to be controlled by all that the coward fears. To be led by a fool is to be led by the opportunists who control the fool. To be led by a thief is to offer up your most precious treasures to be stolen. To be led by a liar is to ask to be told lies. To be led by a tyrant is to sell yourself and those you love into slavery. Queen Octavia Butler.
And I feel like somehow Trump is all of those things.
So please, please, when you vote, think. Think about that quote when you're voting.
And my first quote that I have is from The Stone Sky by N.K. Jemisin, which is the third book in the Broken Earth trilogy. And it is, how can we prepare for the future if we won't acknowledge the past? And the second one I have is from To Be Taught If Fortunate by Becky Chambers. It is, at some point, you have to accept the fact that any movement creates waves, and the only other option is to lie still and learn nothing. You gotta make some waves.
You gotta make some waves.
To change shit.
To change things.
All
So
right.
the last question is to tag people, and the number of people that you tag needs to be divisible by 2. So we're gonna tag Mindy from Mindy's Book Journey,
Laura from Let's Get Fictional,
Tyler J from Tyler J,
and Carol Marie Reads from
Yup.
Carol Marie Reads.
So we want to see y'all do this. 2 books, 1 stone tag. That's the thing.
it.
That's the deal with the deal.
tag.
Yup.
We both finished our first beers.
I opened another.
I still have one from the previous video we filmed,
So we're
I'm
gonna
working
finish
on.
these beers.
So
yeah.
we're gonna finish these beers.
Yeah.
But Fat Tire's a good solid,
Yeah.
easy drinking.
So it's a
you
good
can
staple
probably
beer to
get
keep it in your fridge.
Get it anywhere in the U.S. pretty much.
Mhm.
Good stuff.
Decent stuff. Gotta get it.
All right, so that's the tag. Let us know your thoughts on these books or any of the other random tangents that we went on.
Because we tend to do that.
Yep. And that's it.
That's it. Thanks for watching.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.